Father of the House, Sir Edward Lee.
Thank you. It's a great honour to follow the Honourable Gentleman for Newcastle-under-Lyme, who is fast establishing a reputation as an effective parliamentarian and a thoroughly nice chap. And his speech was appropriate and excellent in every single way, and I agree, I think, with everything he said. And it's not often that Labour MPs quote former Tory Prime Ministers, so that was certainly a first, and we all much enjoyed it. And of course, quite rightly, as we all do, he mentioned the famous people from his constituency. Well, I can match that from Lincolnshire, of course. I can talk of Sir Isaac Newton, John Smith of the Pilgrim Fathers, the great poet Alfred Lord Tennyson, Joan Plowright, and I can mention one other person who came from Lincolnshire, and I don't want to break the cosy consensus of this debate, but it's a lady who I greatly admire and I believe restored the greatness to our country when she was Prime Minister. I don't even need to mention her name, she's so famous. St George, of course, is a saint. He wasn't English, of course, and when the far right try and capture the flag of St George, perhaps they should remember that. He was actually an Anatolian Greek, and I think it's quite good that our national saint is actually not English, and we virtually know nothing about him. And what we do know is based purely on legend and is almost certainly wrong. And I think that says much about the easygoing nature of the English people. We're surrounded by saints here. In the Undercroft we have St Ethelreda, St Edward the Confessor, St Margaret of Scotland, St Edmund, and many more. And in central lobby, of course, we have the four great patron saints of our countries, and there's a well-worn joke, of course, about St Andrew being on the way to the bar, St Patrick on the way to the exit, St David on the way to us, where we all like talking, and St George over the way on the way to the Lords. And saints, of course, unite, politicians divide. One of the themes that I've expressed many times in this chamber, rather an unfashionable point of view, but I briefly mention it, is the importance of religion in binding people together. Religion in an ecumenical basis, being proud of your religion, of its social ethos, in mentioning that all the great religions have much the same sort of moral creed, and I think the decline of religion in England has been rather sad, and I think it is a unifying and should be a unifying factor. Now, the theme I want to talk about, just so I just don't indulge entirely in cliches, is that the whole essence of a nation is a sense of community, that everybody is together in this project and we all do our bit. And sadly, there has been a decline in this sense of community in our nation. For instance, my parents, although English, were brought up in France, and they came here as refugees when the Germans invaded France because they had a British passport in 1940, and they met in Bletchley Park. So they had a very sort of mixed upbringing, but they had a complete dedication to this country. And I remember when my mother was really very old, she would still insist, despite being very infirm, on tottering off to the polling booth. That sort of generation, the wartime generation, and we're celebrating them particularly today, had an absolute sense of duty and community. And I think we want to recreate this. Now, let me make one or two points that may be more controversial. But there are some factors which are breaking our sense of community. And frankly, we all saw from the results last week, they are fueling a feeling of disillusion. One, of course, is illegal migration. And I think we've got to understand that this really infuriates everybody. It doesn't just infuriate right-wing people who don't like the idea of migrants. It also fuels many people, working people who are working hard, who feel that there are some people taking advantage of this. Now, I don't want to make any criticism of migrants. I don't want to attack them personally. I mean, take a Somali migrant. Why is he trying to come here? Because for generations, for hundreds of years, his family could fish off the coast of Somalia. Then we in the West sent in huge trawlers to take all the fish away, took away his livelihood. So we then resorted to piracy. Quite rightly, we then sent in warships to deal with that. So once again, they were starving. So he's now on the way to here. So I don't think that we should approach this issue of migration in any sort of way which is nationalistic. What I liked about the Honourable Gentleman's speech, it was patriotic, not nationalistic, and it tried to heal divisions. But the fact is that illegal migration is an open wound in our society. It's not just the cost of it, of £4 million a day spent on hotels. It's also a sense for many people in our country that people who could apply for asylum in the proper and normal way are bypassing the route. And we've seen from a study in the Daily Telegraph this week how easy it is to pay a people smuggler, how easy it is to come over here and be put in a hotel, how easy it is to just act as a courier. And that is really infuriating people. And really our fate in the Conservative Party, because we're no longer in power, of course, is very much dependent on the Labour government in this, in solving this problem. And they're going to have to solve it, because we cannot go on as we are. It is fueling a great sense of anger in the nation. And they have to get a derogation, as I've argued many times, from the Strasbourg court in order to arrest and detain and deport people. And then this horrible trade will stop immediately. And of course, there is a humanitarian point to be made here that these people smugglers are putting lives at risk and people are dying. And they are feeding on human misery. So we can't do much about it in the Conservative Party, but Labour is now in power, and my advice to them is that if they want to resist this sense of disillusion in society, and people turning away from both the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, they have to do something about it. And they have to do something about legal migration too. A great sense of people who are working hard here, that people are pouring in or have poured in, and I blame my government as much as I don't make a party political point here. The Labour Party has taken over a different issue. We all know the reasons to do with the pandemic and all the other excuses and how we had to keep the NHS going and our care homes. But the fact that the Conservative government allowed 1 million people in here legally last year is absolutely infuriating people. It's depressing wages. It might be good for overall GMP, but it's certainly bad for individual wealth. So again, we can do very little about it in the Conservative Party, but really the government needs to act. I know they are trying to make steps. And why is this relevant to the point of debate about St George? It's about trying to recreate a sense that we are one nation, that everybody works hard, everybody pays their taxes, we get benefits such as free health, free education. When we fall ill, we are helped by the state. I was only talking to a constituent today, and she's clearly a lady in some distress, can't move, but she's just had her PIP cancelled. She's been told she has to work from home. She can't work from home. She hasn't got those sort of skills. More and more people are feeling angry that they've done their bit, they've worked hard, but when they fall ill or need benefit, they're not being helped. And we have to all work together to try and get that sort of, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but that sort of sense of the wartime spirit, where everybody mucked in, everybody had a job, everybody did their bit, and there were frankly very few free loaders. And again, from representing an agricultural constituency, you might think, why am I now getting on to this subject? But again, it's a sense of people feeling that government doesn't understand their point of view in agricultural constituencies. We're all in favour of green energy in Lincolnshire. We are leading green energy in terms of wind farms in the North Sea. There's no opposition to them. But we are angry that entrepreneurs are just importing solar panels from China made by slave labour, covering 10,000 acres in my constituency with no proper local planning. So we're not against solar farms, we're not against the Secretary of State for net zero. We just want a sense of fairness, that local communities have some say in this, and there is some sense of proportion. So I think I've said my bit. I congratulate the honourable gentleman, and I hope we have a very good and worthwhile debate.